Turn that off. It's time for No Pad Sports Talk. Stay tuned as two brothers bring you the latest from your Michigan teams and beyond in hockey, baseball, football, and more. Let's get started. Here are your hosts, JD and Steve.
Welcome to another edition of No Pad Sports Talk. I am one of your hosts, JD.
And I'm Steve, and this is an episode that it's been a long time coming.
Been a long time coming.
Yep.
Indeed.
So,
and, something that we're kind of excited about because, baseball season for the Tigers anyways is over. So it's kind of time, it's time to look back, reflect on the season, and kind of figure out what's next. So
absolutely, right? So before we get started, my middle daughter, Cheyenne, she's finally home. She came home from college this weekend, and she's really only here for the day. She had a dentist appointment. And I was sitting there thinking about it, and it was kind of ironic. For like the first 4 years that she was at college, she didn't have a car because she didn't have her license, right? Or even when she got her license, she wasn't driving, right? All of a sudden, she gets a car, and she wanted to come home every weekend, right? When she didn't have a car and couldn't drive herself, right? So now all of a sudden, she gets a car, she's driving herself, and I don't think she's been home in a month. So one weekend, she is an RA this year, so it's a little bit different, right? So she's got duty on weekends, and they got to alternate, whatever that works out, however that goes. But I just found it funny. I'm like, all that time, all I had to do was make you get your driver's license and give you the car, and then you'd stay on campus and not come home all the time?
Yeah.
If I'd known it was that easy. Right? But, I don't know. She's actually down in her room, so I'm in the basement, and that's where her bedroom is. So I was trying to speak up loud enough, maybe she'd come out and have a discussion. But anyway, it's nice to have the kids home, so. But, yeah, so that's kind of been my week. Actually, I woke up this morning. My truck wouldn't start. So, we got the truck from our dad.
Yeah.
And it has the best way to describe it is it's a gremlin. Because really no one knows what's wrong with it. Dad used to, told us he took it in, and, the mechanics told him it was like a security feature. So what happens is you go, every once in a while you go out and try and start the truck, and it won't start. But if you wait 10 minutes, you go out there, it fires up. Not this morning. So it's 7 o'clock. I'm like, all right. I went out, start the truck, finished making my, get my lunch. Try to start the truck at 7, nothing. I'm like, that's fine. I got time, right? So I waited, and I actually gave it a few extra minutes. It was about 7:15 when I went back out there. Tried to crank it up, nothing. 2 times in a row now. So wouldn't be such a big deal because I only live like a quarter mile from work. So it's walking distance, right?
Right.
But I'm parked behind my wife, who has to leave for work. Right? So I'm like, the truck's got to start. So I go out there the second time. It's almost right at 7:30 now. And it turns on. And I was like, thank goodness. In the past, I've noticed it does it when I'm like, I have to be someplace, right? Or I'm trying to get somewhere. Yeah. And I always said it's, it's Dad's way of telling me, hey, son, just slow down. It'll be there when you get there, right?
Yeah.
Well, this morning I wasn't really in a hurry. I think he was trying to tell me, he said, son, don't go to work. Twice in a row.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Well, it can be annoying, and I think it does it more often now than it did when Dad drove it. But, Dad never really talked about how often it happened. I just remember the first time when he was cussing because it was raining, it was cold, and he spent all day out in the rain.
Yep.
And that truck wouldn't start, and he's trying to get home. And I remember that story, and I was like, I'm glad I wasn't at the house that day. So, but anyway, that was kind of how my week ended. But so yeah, we got Tigers baseball. We're gonna. JD probably remembers the predictions better. I think the only prediction that I remember is that I thought they would be closer to 500.
You did?
I took a shot in the dark, and they were a little closer to 500. I think they played in a weak conference, of course, right? A weak division, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And so they got closer. I think they had 75 or 78. Is that where they were at?
I think they were at 79, weren't they?
Okay. I'm gonna have to look now, but
yeah.
So, but yeah, it was
That was
I was
78. There were 78 and 84.
I was feeling pretty. I was pretty happy about that. Now, JD has said all season, and if you've heard any of the other episodes, I'm going to put it out there before he says what he's been saying. So, one, it was a weak division, and they beat the teams that they were supposed to beat in that division, right? So, and that's a true statement if you look at who they beat and and their wins. So, but that's good. At least they did beat the teams they should have beat, right?
No, it's
it
a
could
start.
Yeah.
That's definitely a start, especially in your own division.
So-
You got to win a division, and they did.
Correct. Yep. So
Yeah.
that's what we're looking for. So it was progress from the year before, right? Saw some young talent. We've got some young talent that I think are itching that we're going to see right at the beginning of the year next year. And I'm going to let JD kind of get into that as we talk about this year. So, but yeah, it was Miggy's last season. I know they did a big to-do for him on his last home game there.
Mm-hmm.
They had that drone show, which I thought was pretty cool. Did you see the video on that?
I did.
Yeah. So Miggy, if you're out there listening, we appreciate what you did for Detroit, the Tigers, and good luck on the new job, because apparently you're staying with the organization. Maybe you can start, keep pushing us in the right direction. That's what we're hoping
Right.
for.
Right. Yeah, look, I mean, what's to really say about the first year of Scott Harris in Detroit? So I think that's kind of where we have to start. When we're talking about Detroit, the Tigers, this is Scott Harris's team. So we learned a lot this year. We learned what Scott Harris values as far as the players go. We learned what kind of players he's, therefore going to go after in both the draft, free agency, etc. We learned that the coaching staffs on all levels, minors and the majors, are actually capable of developing players. I think that's been a huge weakness in the past, is just nobody really cared to develop anybody.
Right.
And that's kind of a change, especially on the pitching side. We developed a lot of pitchers this year. That was fantastic, including some that were literally cast-offs of other teams. I'll just mention Michael Lorenzen. At the beginning of the year, one of the predictions I made was Michael Lorenzen was going to be the best pitcher on the Tigers staff. And he threw a no-hitter, granted not for the Tigers, but it was, he did throw one. But there's something, like Michael Lorenzen, when he was looking for teams to play for, there were zero, that when they offered him a contract, they offered him a starting role as a starting pitcher. Everybody wanted him more as middle relief. And the fact that the Tigers took a chance on him, gave him a starting role, and he then rewarded the Tigers with such a a fantastic season for them. That was I don't want to say unbelievable because it wasn't unbelievable, but it was rewarding on both sides. Michael Lorenzen, he signed a 1-year deal. Now he's going to be able to take what he's done so far up until now, even with the new team, the Phillies, and get that into like a bigger contract. And the Tigers, they got stuff in return for trading them. So I mean, it was a win-win.
Yep.
So that's what I'm talking about as far as pitching goes, and we can go on and on and on about like who they developed. And I think some of the best stories as far as pitchers go is Trey Wingenter. I have such a hard time saying the name. Wingenter. And then, but the best story is Tyler Holton, though. He was a cast-off. He sits there and comes over to the Tigers, and he just pitches for a 2.11 ERA.
Yeah.
85 innings pitched, only 20 earned runs, a whip of .87, and that was fantastic. So, anyways, there were some good things. There were some bad things as well as far as his first season goes, and it's to be expected. You knew that he wasn't going to do much his first season. He told you he wasn't going to do much his first season. He wasn't going to come in and just automatically start signing a bunch of veterans or trading a bunch of players. He really wanted to kind of take a step back, see what the Tigers were about, see what players they had before making any major moves. I think that's a smart way to do business, so here we are. He made some trades, made some moves. I think a lot of them were good. There's a couple that were bad, but it's to be expected, like I said. So anyways, here we are. They outperformed my expectations. I think I predict around 65 wins. I didn't think they were going to improve at all this year. So it's hard for me to, with those expectations going into the season, to then have a lot of negative to say about them when they far exceeded my expectations with 78 wins.
Right.
But anyway, that's kind of like begin, right? Like, because we had to start there with Scott Harris.
Absolutely. With that first year, he got handcuffed with a player that nobody likes.
Yeah,
right?
Baez.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody likes Baez.
Right. He is like everybody's favorite meme. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what he's become. He's become everybody's favorite meme about how bad of pitches that he swings at. Right? You see it all over the place, right? It just, that's how much of a joke he is.
Yep.
And the fact that he's that bad and everybody talks about him as much as they do, to me, it's like, it's for him, he doesn't care because he's getting paid. Right? But if this is your profession,
cares. I do say he cares.
Well, if this was your profession, this is your livelihood. This is, you would think you're going to want to perform at a higher level.
Well, I think
than
he wants to. I do think he wants to. I just think look, baseball is such a mental game.
True.
Especially with hitting. Like think about it, like put it in terms for you, right? Field goal kickers. Right? Like, you miss one, and it just gets in your head, and then that causes you to miss another, and then miss another, then miss another. And I think that's a lot what happens in this case, with Baez. I mean, and we've seen it happen with other players, really good players. Trey Turner. He can't get a huge contract, went to the Phillies, and he was sucking at the beginning of the year. He was terrible.
Yeah, especially after the summer he had in the World Baseball Classic.
Right. Yep, the World Baseball Classic. He just really dominated. And I picked him to be the National League MVP. I thought he was going to just excel, right? So here he comes. He doesn't play all that well, but it's not just hitting, but it's also fielding. The guy was doing nothing right, a lot like Baez.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like the fans showed up for him. like clapped for him, cheered for him instead of booing, and that just turned it around. Like I think that game he hit 2 home runs, and that turned his entire season around. Now I'm not saying the same has to happen for Baez. I'm just saying it's a very mental thing. So.
Well, I think for Baez, it means my brother can't sit behind home plate and heckle him at home, so that the visiting fans can say, "Well, if he can do it, then the rest of us are going to do it."
That's true. That was at the beginning of the season too, so maybe it's all my fault. Because I was at the beginning of the season when all that happened, and it just hasn't stopped. Yeah. That was the opening series against, the home series against Boston, the first one they had, whatever that one was. So, sit behind home plate, heckling Baez. Look, just for, I never liked the signing from the beginning. I hated the signing from the beginning. But,
you did. You've said that from day one, right? You've never hidden your disdain for the trade. The player, all. It's not like it was just one of those things. He had a bad year and you just dumped on him. That's not how. Like from day one, you were like, "This was horrible." As soon as the
signing was announced, I did not like it.
Yeah.
But at any rate, all right. At any rate, let's look. But
I wanted to get the Baez bashing out of the way so we can kind of go to the rest of the good stuff.
I was trying not to really do too much bashing with Baez, but unfortunately, there was 2 players that's kind of handicapping the Tigers, and it was Cabrera and Baez, right? This in terms of contracts.
Contract and money.
For the sake of the Tigers, and for a Tigers fan, even though I'm wearing a Rays shirt, but for a Tigers fan and an Angels background, nothing says Tigers on here, but I'm still a Tigers fan, I swear.
Everybody let him know.
All my Tiger shirts were dirty. All right, so that's what happened. So I had to go to buy the
That's
Rays.
because he has more Tampa Bay Rays jerseys than he does Tiger stuff anymore.
I got 2 shirts for the Rays. All right, but anyways, the so the contracts really hurt. And for the sake of being a Tigers fan, I really hope Baez can turn it around, because otherwise that is all wasted money, and it's really going to hurt the Tigers going forward. And there's nothing the Tigers can really do with Baez, because nobody's going to take him. Like, it's just the way that it is. Like,
it's. I mean, they could cut him. Yeah, I mean, they could cut him, and they still have to pay him.
Right.
But I mean, at least at that point, he wouldn't be on the roster holding up a spot for, say, like a Colt Keith. Not that he's going to be coming in and play that position, but
probably not.
You understand what I'm saying? It's a roster spot.
It's a roster spot, and but at any rate, all right. So that's kind of the bad, right? Like, you got the Nick Maton that the trade was for. It wasn't just for Nick Maton, but he was kind of a, like, when they traded for him, you kind of expected him to be the starting third baseman, and he played horribly. And there's really no spot for Nick Maton either, right? So that's a bad. The Baez thing, even though it didn't happen with Scott Harris, it's still kind of a negative towards the Tigers. And then, Cabrera actually had a good year for his final year, but you get that money off the books. So
correct,
right? So now going forward, we know what Scott Harris likes. He likes hitters, like pure hitters. He doesn't necessarily go for power. He likes hitters like, say, Riley Green, and I'm a huge Riley Green fan. Right? He likes hitters that's going to go ahead and hit the ball hard, and not necessarily, hit home runs. But if someone can give us 20 home runs a year, that's kind of what Scott Harris is looking for. Nothing. He's not looking for the 50, 60, 70 home run guy. Not saying he wouldn't take him if he fell into our lap, but just that's not his type of hitter. He wants someone that's going to be good on the base pass, wants someone that's going to be good defensively. And when I'm good on base pass, I mean, making smart decisions and running the bases well, pretty quick. And Riley Green does all those things well. So Riley Green is the type of player that Scott Harris is looking for. So think Riley Green, don't think Spencer Torkelson.
Yeah. So he's wanting a 300 hitter with 20 home runs and 100 RBIs kind of thing, right?
Yeah. On base percentage of 400, batting average of 300, 20 home runs. That's what he's looking for. Someone that might be able to swipe 20 bases a year. Nothing like, major. And and plays good defense. Like, that's what he wants. So, now, Riley Green is going to be the face of the Tigers going forward. Riley Green is going to be a really good ball player. He's a 5'2" player. He's kind of proven it. And like I said, I love Riley Green. So Spencer Torkelson, another good positive, right? He kind of came on strong at the end of the season. Hit over 30 home runs. And if he hit as well towards the end of the season as he did at the beginning of the season, he would have had over 40 easy, and approaching that 50 mark. Like Spencer Torkelson, I'm hoping can take what he learned and developed in the second half of the season to carry it over to next season and just have a monster year at the plate. That's kind of what we have to look for.
Was Torkelson the guy that had played like 6 different positions? He was the utility player? No. Who was that guy?
There's 2 guys for that, really. You got McKinstry. And speaking of McKinstry, he's actually been nominated for a Gold Glove for a utility player.
Yeah, now that's the guy. That's who I was talking about. I thought it was Torkelson, but it was McKinstry.
Yeah. So Torkelson is going to be our first baseman of the future and potentially DH, because now you got the DH spot open with Cabrera leaving it. But then you got Carpenter. Carpenter hasn't really been great in the field. You don't really have a good position for Carpenter, but Carpenter can go ahead and play in the field, right field. Just to get his bat in the lineup, because then you also have John Henry Malloy in the minors in AAA, and he doesn't have a defensive position either. So you kind of have, 3 guys that's kind of like a first baseman / DH. Because Malloy is probably going to make the Tigers next year. Definitely at some point next year, but possibly even out of spring training. But you got some young guys. We just talked about Malloy. Matt Vierling is another guy I really like. He came on pretty strong at, all through the season. I think he was actually one of the overall better players for the Tigers, right? Like Vierling, he did pretty well. I liked Vierling a lot. And he's also one of those players that can play multiple positions. And towards the end of the season, he was also there at third base.
Yeah.
So, you're looking at, let's talk position players though, because we kind of already are. But so Cabrera's gone. We don't really know what's going to happen to Austin Meadows, who's Parker Brothers' brother. We don't know. We have no idea.
Right.
But because he was a great offensive threat, but he just hasn't. He has a mental illness, and that's one of those things that's really hard to do.
Yeah, you got to be able to give him time to take care of himself so he can come back and be the player we want him to be. Right.
So outfielders between Akil Baddoo, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, Zach McKinstry, Parker Meadows, Austin Meadows, and Matt Vierling. You can't really count on Austin Meadows. Parker Meadows will be on the opening day roster. Matt Vierling will be. Zach McKinstry will be. Riley Green will be. Kerry Carpenter will be. So really, all you got really is Akil Baddoo. He's gonna be fighting for a roster spot with a couple other players that's gonna be potentially coming up. And I know a lot of people really like Baddoo. I'm just not a fan. I don't think he is he's more like a 4A player, not necessarily a major league player, unless he can get on base more often. That's it. He just needs to get on base, so I'm not really a big fan of him. Infielders between Baez, Ibanez, Kreidler, Leonard, Lipschitz. Now this is all on a 40-man roster, by the way. This is an FYI. This is a 40-man roster, not an active roster for the 26-man. But you got Baez, Ibanez, Kreidler, Edis, Leonard, Lipschitz, Maitan, Nevin, Perez, Short, and Torkelson. Obviously, out of all those, Baez is going to make it because of the money you're paying him. Torkelson's going to be there. And the one guy that you can pretty much count on not being there is Maitan, just because specifically he doesn't have any more minor league options left, and the way he was playing, batting under 200 and not playing really good defense, there's no reason to keep him on the roster. He's gone. So that opens up a spot on the infield, which is good because when we start talking about their prospects, you'll know why. And then catcher-wise, Donnie Sands is gone. Probably going to keep Carson Kelly and Jake Rogers, right? So,
yeah.
What I like about this roster is it's not as bad as what I thought it was going to be as far as players, because I think we did almost like a mid-season roster review a little while ago, right?
Yeah.
and I was just shredding the roster, and not saying this, and saying there was not a lot of major league talent on the roster. But that kind of changed towards the end of the year. But
Right.
Colt Keith is an infielder. He should be on the team next year. You got Jace Young, infielder. He has a possibility of making the team next year. Hao Yu Lee has a possibility of making the team probably in 2 years. But, and then Justin Henry Malloy. So there you go. And then the catcher you're going to replace with is going to be Dylan Dingler. I think he's going to make the team next year. So that's going to be like kind of the three catchers. So, but there we go. So it's good that we kind of got some of these players, that's kind of like seeing their way out as we got some of these players that's ready to graduate and go up and play into the major leagues, right? So, as
Did
far
you
as
mention
this year
Justin Bigby? Or
did not
Justice
mention
Bigby, I'm
Bigby.
sorry.
No, I did not mention Big B.
No. Okay.
No. I mean, I know Big B, there's a lot of hype surrounding him recently. He was like a very, like a 17th, 18th round pick. I don't know. He's somewhere really like far back there. And in this year, he actually had a pretty good average. And he jumped up through the ranks quick. He started off like in high A, hitting the 300s, got into double A, again, hitting the mid 300s. And he got to Toledo. He didn't have a ton of at-bats in Toledo. I think he played like a handful of games, like 12 or something. And he only had like a 275 average. So, but he flew through the ranks this year just because of how much he was able to produce offensively. And that's, encouraging, of course. Because, he's kind of taking the same path as Kerry Carpenter, because Kerry Carpenter was also like an 18th round draft pick. And you kind of see what he was able to do and develop this year and just being such a good hitter that he was. And Justin Bigby being a late round draft pick has now kind of gone on the same path. Late round pick and kind of developing into a solid hitter.
Right. Well, because we talked about that, I think, we're right around the draft about players that pretty much anybody not selected out of round one, right? And the percentage, their percent of actually making a major league team in the majors, right? From actually making it up to the majors.
Right. Yeah, it's very small, right? I forgot what it was. It was like single digits or something, wasn't it?
It was like, I thought it was like 7 or 8, 9%, something like that. It was very low.
Yeah.
And I think it was closer to 7, but yeah. So you mentioned about that, and I'm looking at the roster, our prospects and stuff, right? Everyone knows about Max Clark. Obviously, he's an 18-year-old kid. And, it's going to be a couple of years, before we see him up.
I'd say 3 years minimum.
Right. So, in A-ball, his average wasn't real great, right?
No, he actually struggled in A-ball. But what was encouraging, though, I don't mean to cut you off, brother, but like what was encouraging, though, was his walk rate.
Right,
because,
and that's what I was getting ready to get to, was to talk about, for his on-base percentage, like how much. So
yeah, you got a good walk
because that's
rate.
what you talked about. You said that's what Scott Harris was looking for, right? We just need guys to get on base, and you can get on base with a walk.
Yes, you can.
So,
on Kevin McGonigal, once again, he was a draft pick this year too. Oh, excuse me. And, and he kind of took the same path that Max Clark is doing, but he hit 350 in low A. So he's looking good, and that's one of the main reasons, from what I understand, is why we drafted Max Clark, was because we could be able to get, Kevin McGonigal as well, in the same draft.
And McGonigal was the guy, he's out of college, right?
No,
he wasn't a college player?
He's also high school player.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's why it was so tough for him. Let me rephrase that. That's why it was going to be harder for the Lions. We talk so much about the Lions.
Yeah. I know.
The Tigers to draft two, because they had 2 first-round picks, and drafting both
Right.
Max Clark and Kevin McGonigal in the first round as high schoolers, you usually got to pay high schoolers more money to skip college.
Okay.
So, but Max Clark,
Especially
said,
now with NIL.
That's correct. Yeah. And now with Max Clark, because he said from the get-go he'd sign for under the slot value, and that allowed us to use that extra money that Max Clark saved us to go get Kevin McGonigal. So that was huge. And another trade that was made was Hyu Lee, because he came from Philadelphia, and he's one of those players again that's going to get on base, and that's going to give you good defense. We have to really see kind of like he's only 20 years old right now. He's probably got a couple years left before he actually reaches the majors. But overall, I kind of like the trade because there wasn't a lot being offered, unfortunately, for the Tigers. And Hyu Lee was probably the best player that they got, offered for. But anyways.
Yeah.
And then another cool one is Max Anderson. So Max Anderson, he was a college player. I think this was the first college player they took in this last past draft. He's also an A-ball, so he's with McGonigal and Clark, and he ended up hitting 289. So we took a lot of infielders in this draft, really, which was needed because we don't really have a third baseman. Our second base is still in flux. We don't really know what's going to happen there.
Right.
Yeah. But overall, we know what happened this year, right? I mean, we don't really have time to go player by player breakdown. I wish we did.
Yeah. That would be a really long episode.
It'd be a really long episode. But all we can really say as far as, the players go is that, overall, the Tigers have gotten younger after, graduating, Green, Torkelson, Carpenter, etc. And they're going to get younger again next year. Let's get on some of these players like Cabrera. Again, thank you, Cabrera. No hate your way, but, again.
Yeah.
Just, getting a little bit younger. And, man, the future's bright. I'm really, really excited for what's going to happen, I'd say, the next 2 years. Because pitching prospect, you got Jackson Jobe. That dude, everything that we're hearing out of him, or from, like coming back, the guy's just been, killing it. Just killing it. Striking people out left and right. And I was not a fan of that pick when it first happened, as an FYI.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know that a lot of people were, at least from what I've read, right? But, as we look at these things, it's, they're so young, right? Like, these people are they're still kids.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when you're drafting these guys that young, you've got to give them time to develop, right? They're coming out of high school, and if they have a really good fastball, that's really the only pitch they got to throw because they're just going to throw it by people, right?
Sure,
so they got to, they got to develop the curveball. They got to develop, other pitches, and that takes time. Now, at least on that pitching side, right? But even on the hitting side, it's the transition from an aluminum bat to a wood bat. It's a big deal.
So
right?
here's the big elephant in the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
Max Clark we drafted when we could have had Wyatt Langford. And I know that's what a lot of people are all right now. Those two players are going to be, compared to each other throughout their entire careers because of a what if. And Wyatt Langford started in rookie ball. Now he only played 3 games in rookie ball. All right. But he started in rookie ball, and then he immediately skipped low A, went right into high A. Had 24 games in high A. Out of those 24 games, he hit 5 home runs in 24 games.
Yeah.
Had 15 RBIs, 18 walks to 18 strikeouts. That is insane. Having 18 walks, right? So his on-base percentage in high A was .453. Then they're like, okay, we've seen enough. And they sent him to double A. He had 12 games in double A, 54 plate appearances, so almost exactly half of what he had in high A. And in those plate appearances, he hit 4 home runs in 54 plate appearances. Batting average of .405 and on-base percentage of .519. Dude,
Yeah.
killed it, right? So then, lastly, they're like, okay, we've seen enough of you in double A. You know, it's the end of the year. Let's go ahead and put you up there to triple A and see what you got in triple A. So he only played 5 games in triple A. Like I said, it was the end of the year. They just threw him up there just to kind of see. He had 26 plate appearances, so again, half of what he had in double A.
Right.
Now, he didn't have any home runs in AAA, but the guy still hit 368. But the impressive thing was, right, because so 368 versus his 405 average that he had in AA. So he had a less average, but still, like, the average was awesome at 368. The impressive thing, though, was with a lower average, he had a higher on-base percentage of .539. So
he took more walks.
So, like, Wyatt Langford is everything as advertised, right? He absolutely killed the minor leagues this year. Killed it. Yeah. And I'd say, he even had a better minor league season than Dylan Cruz. And I was a huge Dylan Cruz fan, right? Like, I'm like, basically Dylan Cruz or bust was, you know, my thought process.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, but Dylan Cruz only made it to AA. And he only hit 208 in AA, as an FYI. So, anyways, so I know a lot of fans right now are angry that we took Max Clark over Wyatt Langford. But I do believe, even as good as, you know, Langford's been early in his minor league career, I still believe, even right now, that Max Clark has a higher potential ceiling than Langford. That says a lot, because Langford's a good ball player.
Well, so Langford came out of LSU, right? Or is he the one that came out?
Florida.
With Cruz? Florida.
Yeah.
So he had 3 years there, right?
Yes.
So he's got 3 years on Max Clark.
That's correct.
Right, as far as growth, right? And I can only imagine, I mean, you play at Florida. Florida's SEC or is that ACC?
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
it's SEC.
They're playing those teams, right? The competition's got to be fierce down there.
It is.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be a competitor. You got to be a ball player, a good ball player to make those teams. So I get what people are saying. I can understand the frustration. They had a guy that could have come right in, you know, and potentially by, you know, the All-Star game, you know, you have this guy, you bring him in, right? The way he moved through the lower, you know, minor league levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at that rate, I mean, it's to me potentially feasible that he's gonna, you know, see his opportunity after the All-Star break. That's if he continues to play like that. But on the backside of that, you're right. With Max Clark, you know, what's he going to have in 3 years? Yeah, you're going to tie them together, but you can't do that because they were at 2 different levels, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, Wyatt Langford had 3 more years of ball on this kid, right? So
Langford's almost 22 years old, as an FYI. Almost 22. Yeah. And Max Clark is
18.
Yeah, he'll be 19 in a couple months. So
you know, I just
you're talking 3 years of difference, 3 years of maturing, you know, growing into your, you know, getting more muscular.
In your body. That's right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like I said,
what people
good.
Yeah, you know, I think he is, like, he struggled there a little bit. But again, everybody does. It's a transition. I think he moved kind of quick through the first couple steps right there through rookie ball, and then he got into low A now, or high A. He's
in low A.
He's in low A. All right. So, like, just moving them through those points. Look, the kid's gonna have some time. Give him the opportunity. I think Scott Harris is starting to put the players together. You talked about the coaching, the development of players as hitters, right? So honestly, that's going to be key.
That's what I was just going to really say. The development isn't just key for the young players we have, but think about what they could do to some of these free agents coming up. And I'm not talking about the top tier free agents. I'm not talking about Shohei Ohtani or whatever, right? Because everybody knows what he is. We're talking about the other free agents that, might have been like the next tier or the tier underneath that even. And it's like, look what we did to, Lorenzen. Look how we helped Eduardo Rodriguez. Look at, Tarek Skubal, who's, he was kind of a later round pick, and now he's looking like an ace. And it's like, look how we help develop these type of pitchers. Come to us, we can help improve you as well. So that's fine. If you don't want to sign long term, sign a 2-year contract with me. Help us while we help you, right? That kind of thing. That could help lure some potential free agents into your onto your team because of just how you develop them. So, look, I think the Tigers have set themselves up pretty for the future. We finally are starting to get the younger players that we were lacking in the past. We never really had a good farm system. Dave Dombrowski would trade away our players we had in our farm system, for veterans. He won. You can't really argue with the results. He never won a World Series with the Tigers, but he made us good. So it's hard to argue against that. But we never had a good farm system. We're actually starting to have a little bit of a farm system right now.
Yeah. It was just, the team is going to get younger, just like you said. The talent is there. I think we're getting the coaching staff and the player development. I think that's going to be coming along. And as long as that, keep going after the players that we want, players that can help us now, and get players that are going to help us in 2-3 years, because that's how you build that dynasty. You got to have the system develops so that as players age or free agency, whatever that is, right? You got a body that's going to be able to come in and fill that spot.
Yeah. And right now, that's actually looking like that's what we're developing. That's what we're getting to. Oh, I didn't tell you this. It's on my mind. So we were talking off air, and we were talking about some the changes the Tigers are making, including upgrading their Dominican Republic facility. And there's been a lot of talk about the Dominican Republic facility, as in that might help lure more of the Dominican Republic and players to the Tigers. In a way, it will, but it's not that facility is now head and shoulders above everybody else's. That just kind of caught us up with how everybody else was at. We had such poor facilities and everything. We're way down here. Now we're finally even. So, but what I found out today even is the Detroit Tigers facility, 3 days ago, was robbed at gunpoint. And there were actual players in the facility when it occurred. And this is not just a Tigers problem. Something else I heard was out of the 30 teams for Major League Baseball, 16 now have had their facilities in the Dominican Republic robbed at gunpoint. I also heard that luckily to this point, no one's been injured, but it's one of those things where it's a matter of time, right? It's a matter of time before something happens.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep hitting the mute button on my side because my computer's every time I get on here, it feels like it wants to do an update, and it's running, and that fan is getting that fan noise, and I'm trying to. I started noticing it, and I'm like, that's gonna be annoying when you're listening to it on the other side. So I'm trying to hit the mute button while this thing does whatever it does every single time I get on it and we want to do a show.
Just get a liquid cool one to be fine.
That's the next one.
But anyways, look, to wrap up the whole Tigers thing, right? The point is, the Tigers had a much better year than expected. Tigers owned their division, which is an important step moving forward when you're talking about trying to win your division and get a playoff spot. A good thing for the Tigers, and again, thank you, Miggy, but all that money is coming off the books. We can figure out what to do with that later on. Yep. We're actually getting some players to improve our farm system, and we're actually starting to develop players. So, like, there's a lot of positives that we can just, wrap up this whole thing with and say, these are good things for the Tigers. And that's what you have to do. You look at, are the Tigers better today than they were yesterday? In this case, better this year than last year. And I'd say in every aspect that matters, the answer is yes. So,
and I think when you're talking about rebuilding a team, that's all you can hope for. Right? Were we better than last year? Right? Until you get to that point where you're a consistent winner again.
Well, to compare it to the Lions, we've seen the Lions kind of go through a bunch of rebuilds ever since '57, but but what actually worked, right? They got some good coaching in here, and they brought in players that fit the system they were trying to run.
Correct.
And they had everybody buy in to the system. They changed the culture, that everybody buy into it. And that's kind of where the Tigers are starting. They changed their front office. They changed their management. They are bringing in players that fit the system that they want to use, in Detroit. Like, you kind of see the parallels between the two teams. So, at any rate, I'm pretty excited for the future. I know this year isn't over yet, specifically for baseball, but it is for the Tigers. But I'm already looking forward to spring training. I'm hoping, like I said, that all the big players, Torkelson, Carpenter, Green, Vierling, and then that pitching side, hopefully Casey Mize comes back and he's strong. You got Skubal, Matt Manning, hopefully he comes back and he's strong. You kind of see Bo Brisk, see what he's able to do again, if he's able to come back and be healthy and be strong. And you kind of hope that this team, just kind of this young core that we've developed, and both pitching as well as positional players, are able to come back, get healthier, get better, and then help teach the new guys coming up, John Henry Malloy, Colt Keith, and then potentially some others. We don't really know who else is going to make that jump. I mean, Jace Young has an opportunity to, but then again, you got Parker Meadows. He came in for a few games at the end of the season, but he's going to be another young piece. And Parker Meadows looks like he's going to be a great defensive fielder. He's probably going to take over the center field position. Riley Green's probably going to move to a corner. Which is great because hopefully he gets injured less playing a corner position than center field. But at any rate, all this stuff is good, and that's what makes me excited. I want the season to kind of begin again for the Tigers because I just want to see how these players developed over the off season.
Yeah. And what pitchers and catchers report? Is it late February or is it early March?
I think it's early February as far as reporting goes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know. I mean, we're talking here. We're at the end of October, so November, December, January, February. We're basically 4 months from pitchers and catchers reporting.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know why I hit that date. I'm gonna see if it can. Yeah, it looks like it's gonna be middle February, the 13th to the 15th. Okay. Yeah.
There you go. So before, you'll blink and then it'll be there, right? So basically, we'll finish our football season, have the Super Bowl, our recap, and then pitchers and catches report.
Pitchers and catchers. Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna look at doing an overall Major League Baseball season. Playoffs. Talk about that a little bit. We got some Red Wings talk coming up, some Pistons talk coming up. Trying to expand a little bit there, and hey, hopefully you like, subscribe, and enjoy the content, because we've got a lot more coming towards you. Uploading it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because in the summertime it's just baseball, right? And then it's football fills in at the end of the summer. Baseball's ending, but as this baseball ending, you got hockey, basketball, like bam, and they're started. Hockey's already started. Basketball's still in the preseason, but it's a busy winter for us.
And I'm looking forward to going to some hockey games, because I tell you, shout out to my friend Tim. He's taken me to a couple hockey games, between Dallas, over there in Tampa Bay, etc. And I tell you what, as much as I love going to baseball games, I mean, going to a hockey game ranks right up there for me as far as enjoyment and fun. Yeah. I love going to hockey games.
Yeah, atmosphere at a hockey game is just different. It's different level.
It's different. If you guys out there listening to us, if you've never been to a hockey game, look, you got to go to a hockey game.
Got to go to a hockey game. And the thing is, you don't have to know anything about the sport to get out there and enjoy it. Get a dog, get a beer, enjoy the game, and maybe somebody will, sneak in a squid or octopus, whatever, octopus.
The octopus, right.
Octopus. Yeah. So, you never know.
Never know. So, but we do appreciate you if you made it to the end. Thank you for that. I appreciate everybody out there. I appreciate all the new followers we're getting, and the comments. Keep them coming. We try to respond to them all. So thank you again.
There you do. Take care, guys.
Talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to No Pads Sports Talk. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, help spread the word by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on social media at No Pads Sports Talk.